Okay.
I can't get,
All right. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming. It is 6:31, so we'll call the public hearing to order. Well, I'll call our meeting to order first. Would you like to call your meeting to order first, and then we'll get started?
Very well. So Finance Committee is called to order at 6:31.
Okay. Beautiful. That's it. All right. All right. So I am going to make a motion to recess until the conclusion of the public hearing on the proposed FY25 budget and warrant articles. Need someone to second that?
Second.
Thank you, Allison. So we're recessing at 6:31, and we'll jump into the public hearing now. So the purpose of the public hearing is to present and obtain public input on the Brookline School District proposed FY25 budget. Were each articles to be approved, the total would be $12,693,386, which represents an increase of $542,408, or 4.46% over FY24. So I know we have on the screen a presentation we'll be going through. What we are going to do with each article is just allow for any questions from the public for each one. The school board will hold any deliberations until the presentation is concluded, and then we'll deliberate back in our meeting after the public hearing's closed. So that's how we'll walk through that piece. I believe, yeah, so after each article, I will also ask for testimony in favor and testimony in opposition. I'll do that twice for each article. So you feel free to come on up if you have something to say. If not, that's perfectly okay too. And then this evening we'll make our deliberations and vote. And at that point, this will carry forward to the deliberative session in February. Okay, so with that, I'll turn it over. Who is presenting this one? You are? All right, very good. Thanks, Andy.
I'd like to thank everybody for coming out. Thank the members of the Finance Committee for giving of their time, the school board for all their efforts that went to putting into this budget, and as well as the administrators who participated in the process. In terms of the Brookline School Board, we have the chair is Ken Haig, the vice chair is Colleen Mikovich, the secretary is Tracy Perry, and Kelly Zacher and Allison Mannion make up the other two memberships. The SAU administration is made up of myself, the superintendent, Andy Corey. Gina Bergskog is assistant superintendent. Director of student services is Lauren DeGennaro, and our business administrator is Kelly Seeley. When we start, we're looking at the student demographics is where we started our budget discussions. And what you'll see is our projections for the next 5 years show our enrollment going up. We're one of the few towns in New Hampshire that sees an increase in enrollment. I have had discussions with the growth management people, and we are one of the fastest growing towns in New Hampshire, and it's been incredible. Our enrollment right now in FY24 is 582. We're projecting 597 next year, and we don't go out much beyond 5 years because that's very difficult because we're very much based on the economics, and our town fluctuates if the economy was to go in a negative direction. But the next 3 years after that, we look at 625, 654, and 678, and that's based on local housing development, birth rates, and calculated by an organization called NESDEC that we use. A little bit about the FY25 warrants and tax info and the budget process. First of all, with the budget process, the principals start their need assessment from July to September, where they kind of give us their wish list of different things that they're looking at. We have superintendent's revisions in October through November. Then the school board finance committee has a meeting in December. Then we start to look at the tax effort determination using the final budget and revenue estimates, which takes place this month. We compare the tax effort to the tax cap, and then we have the public hearing presentation, which brings us to tonight. So the first order of business is the tax cap calculation, and that is the year 23-24, but it's for budgets 24 and 25. So the operating budget of $11,524,787 is for FY '24. $11,970,361 for FY '25. So a difference in the operating budgets of 3.9%. Local revenue, we see an increase of 10.4%, going from $714,557 to $789,000. State aid grant, again, is going up slightly from $2,329,925 to $2,358,349. The retained state tax is going up 3.2% from $651,248 to $672,077. That gives us our tax cap effort of $7,829,057 for FY '24 and $8,150,935 for FY '25, which is a 4.1% increase. Tonight, we're going to do an overview of the warrants. Article 1 is the elections. We're looking at, in need of a clerk, a treasurer, and a moderator. And we have one position for school board member for 3 years. The filing dates are from the 24th of this month to February 2nd. Anybody who's interested can reach out and contact the SAU or contact Town Hall, and we'll get you the information, the paperwork to make that happen. Article 2 is a support staff contract for $93,370, which is a year 3 adjustment. Article 3 is the operating budget, which is $11,970,361. Article 4 is the SAU budget of $473,655. I'd just like to mention that that article is the only article that is the culmination of the vote from all 3 districts. So the Brookline School District, the Hollis School District, and the Hollis Brookline Cooperative School District. So that is the last article to be calculated at the last annual meeting every year, and that decides which is approved, either the SAU recommended budget or the adjusted budget. Article 5 is Maintenance Trust for $156,000 for a total FY '25 proposed of $12,693,386. Looking just quickly at 24 versus 25. Article 2, the teacher's contract. Last year, that was a warrant article. This year, it's in the budget because it was Sanbornized and voted by the taxpayers. We have an additional support staff contract of $93,370. We have the comparisons of the operating budgets, the comparisons of the SAU budget. This year, we're not recommending a contribution to the Special Ed Trust because we have hit the max that we had established a number of years back, and fortunately have not had to withdraw from that trust fund. The Maintenance Trust, you can see that the calculation from last year to this year is a difference of $1,000 of an increase in this year's budget, giving you the total proposed budgets for '24 and '25, again, with FY '25 being $12,693,385. Part of the budget is your local revenue. So we have the FY '24 estimate, the FY '25 proposed, the difference, and the percentage difference. Tuition in preschool, we're seeing a slight decrease of $1,000. There is no difference in our earnings. Food services staying the same. The special ed aid is going down by $74,610 for a decrease of 29.9% aid reduction. Grants are staying the same. We have a voted fund balance. In FY '24, that was $55,000. The proposed in FY '25 is $156,000, with a difference of $101,000 or 183.6% increase. Medicaid is staying the same. Fund balance to reduce taxes, Last year it was $20,387. We're proposing $50,000 this year. So that is a difference of a difference of $29,613, which is a percent of 145.3%. Other is different revenues that come in. Sometimes they're anticipated, others they are not. We are proposing in FY25 of just to $20,000, which would be a decrease of $947 for 4.5%. So when you look at the revenue, we're seeing a positive difference of $54,056 to the next year's budget. The state aid estimates, we have adequacy aid of FY24 was $2,329,925. FY25 is $2,358,349 for an increase of $28,424 or 1.2% in state adequacy. The retained tax last year was $651,248. FY25 is projected at $672,077 for a difference or an increase of $20,828 or a percentage difference of 3.2%. So we see our state aid estimates going up by about $49,252 or 1.7%. In terms of the tax rate info, this assumes all articles approved as written, and we again highlight 23-24, which is actually the budget's 24-25. You again see the comparison of the operating budgets, the warrant articles, the local revenue of $734,944 versus $789. State grant aid, $2,329,925 versus $2,358,349. The retained state tax is up slightly, like we discussed, which gives us a total tax effort of $8,434,861 for FY24. And a total of $8,873,960 for FY25. So your Brookline School District tax rate is $7.61 or 3.1%. The state tax rate is remaining the same, it's 58 cents. So you see the tax rate going from $7.96 to $8.19, and that's a 2.9% increase. And that assumes a 2% increase in the Brookline tax base, which brings us to the warrant articles. As the chair said, I will read the article, go through it, and then I will turn it over to the chair after I've gone through the supporting documents, and we'll take any public input or questions that come up. Article 2, the support staff contract. To see if the Brookline School District will vote to approve the cost of items included in year 3 of a 4-year collective bargaining agreement reached between the Brookline School Board and the Brookline Educational Support Staff Association for the 22-23, 23-24, 24-25, and 25-26 school years, which called for the following increase in support staff salaries and benefits at the already approved 24-25 staffing levels. Fiscal year 24-25, estimated additional increase of $93,370. 25-26, estimated additional increase of $7,100. Total additional increase of $100,470. And further, to raise and appropriate an additional sum of $93,370 for the third fiscal year, 24-25 school year, such sum representing the additional costs attributable to the increases in support staff salaries and benefits required by the new agreement. Excuse me. Over those that would be paid at the already approved 24-25 staffing levels. Some background and history on this article. Why is the increase needed? The current wages are not competitive and we're unable to hire paras and food service workers. In FY24, we had to contract with agencies for several paras at 3 times the cost of hiring a para. When you look at it, we provided you the wages for the Brookline School District, the Hall School District, and the co-op for 24, as well as for the para position and the food service position. With the proposal that we're asking for voter support on the contract, we would make the starting wages increase would be applied. So a para would go from $14.70 to $16.40. Food service would go from $13.23 to $15.24. As you'll note, we'll still be the lowest of the 3 districts in our SAU, but we feel these would be much more competitive and help us in the hiring department. In terms of the support staff contract, we're in year 3. What we are looking at is an increase of $93,370. So the total with the increases is $131,986. And that takes us to the conclusion of Article 2, which is our first article, and I'll turn it over to the chair.
Okay, so we have a microphone? I guess we might have to share one at the end of the table there. So I'll call testimony in favor and opposition for the public. We'll start with any testimony in favor. Okay, any testimony in opposition? All right, come on up, please state your name and your road, please.
Yes, is this on? Yes, my name is Eric Power. I live on Westview Road. And I just wanted to, I know this is the first point we got to speak, but I wanted to mention that when I looked at the NESDEC numbers that were on the graph, I saw some discrepancies on 2 of the years. In FY 22, the NESDEC report that I had said it was 587 instead of the 575. And also in FY 23, the number was 580 instead of 584. That's what I got using the pre-K to 6 numbers that were in the NESDEC report from this October. I don't know if those can be fixed, or if I'm incorrect, let me know. I did have a question just about the NESDEC report. It looks like you're using the numbers from pre-K to 6. And I'm wondering, especially in the pre-K level, are we counting all of the students that come in for the pre-K program, especially those that are tuitioned in, or are we just counting the ones that are in for sort of the special ed needs?
Those are all the enrolled students, including those that are tuitioned in. Those are offset by the revenue that you see for preschool tuition.
Okay. So we have 3- and 4-year-old classrooms in the school?
We do.
Okay, great. One thing I also wanted to mention on the tax cap, I still have a disagreement about how you calculate the tax cap. You did it right the first couple of years, and a couple of years ago, last year, you changed. The tax cap really should be all warrant articles that are appropriations, not just the operating budget. But I just want to make that point again while I'm up here. Getting on to Article 2, I do not support this article. As the superintendent explained, we passed a warrant article in 2022, a 4-year San-Bernized contract for the support staff, locking in the increases, and now in year 3 we're trying to increase them again beyond what the voters had supported in 2022. And I think we should let the current contract play out. The purpose of a San-Bernized contract is to protect both the employees but as well as the taxpayers. And I understand there can be some need for this, but also if you look at, and I requested and thank you, I got the pay tables for the various years, the 2 new years coming up, and we're giving incredible raises percentage-wise to the support staff, and my understanding, and I don't know if the superintendent mentioned this, my understanding from receiving the tables was that we're going to collapse categories 5, 6, 7, and 8 down into category 5. And the category 5 is going to be the highest that's also going to be a much larger pay in the pay table. And just seeing what over 2 years, the lowest pay raise, if you look at the worst case, is 11%, but most of the folks are seeing 20, 30, and over 40% pay increases in 2 years. The highest on the table would be a Category 1, Step 10, and that person over the 2 years will get a 45.5% increase. And I don't know many taxpayers in town that are getting these kinds of increases. People are hurting. The people are complaining about the tax rate, and I think this is the wrong time. We should let the contract play out. It should stay where it is, and we can renegotiate that in 2 years, because it's really adding another $100,000, in over 2 years. You're going to have to pay that $93,000 second year. That's just the increase this year. Then it compounds. It's just going to drive up the operating budget unnecessarily. So I'm against this warrant article. I hope that voters recognize that and that they will vote against it, and I hope the Finance Committee votes against it. Thank you very much. I don't know, Superintendent, if you can answer my questions about the categories?
In terms of the collapsing them?
Yes, is that an accurate
Yes.
assessment?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yep.
So everybody in categories 6, 7, and 8 are going to be in 5 next year, if it passes?
Not exactly.
No.
The pay table.
We discussed this in October, so I don't remember all the category adjustments, but we're trying to become more in line with Hollis and the co-op, so it's a little bit more equivalent. There are positions that were grandfathered, and there are folks who are not in position, so there might be a category, but there are no actual positions in those categories that had been collapsed. So it was getting us closer together while maintaining, trying to maintain a competitive wage.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, thank you, Eric. I'll call for testimony in favor one more time. All right, and any further testimony in opposition? Okay, hearing none, we will close Article 2 and move on to Article 3 now, which is our operating budget.
Article 3, operating budget. To see if the Brookline School District will vote to raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amounts set forth on the budget posted with the warrant are as amended by vote of the first session for the purposes set forth therein, totaling $11,970,361. Should this article be defeated, the default budget shall be $11,779,581, which is the same as last year, with certain adjustments required by previous action of the school district, or by law or by governing body, may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 40:13X and XVI to take up the issue of a revised operating budget only. Some background on the operating budget. The key budget changes. We see, first of all, the total change is $445,574 for a 3.9%. Under the new items requested, we see academics for $44,190, regular ed personnel $122,492, special ed personnel $136,086, computer equipment replacement of $42,390, shared services and software for $5,000, and for facility safety for $28,000, for a total of $378,158. The major changes in the operating budget, we see a decrease in special ed contracted services. We see a decrease in special education out-of-district placements. We see a decrease in special ed out-of-district services. We have classroom teachers plus one new teacher that we added in August based on enrollment increases. We have special education new positions for program needs. We have special ed transportation, again for program needs. We have a teacher retirement, which is part of their collective bargaining agreement. Health insurance, we had a guaranteed max rate, which was a significant increase of $38,019. And special ed teachers and paras were increasing based again on program needs. So our major changes total $277,427, which is the reductions as well as the increases that we see across the operating budget. The operating budget also asks for a summary of the default budget. The default budget is the adopted operating budget from FY '24, which was $11,524,787. Items that were required by law are contracted increases and reductions to a total of $278,920. Any one-time expenses are taken out, so that's $24,126, which gives us a default budget of $11,779,581. In terms of the default budget details, the wages and benefits increase is $227,802. We deduct the special ed services transportation of $36,428. We have health, dental, FICA, and New Hampshire retirement increase of $77,318. There is a regular ed transportation of $8,400, a regular ed contracted services of $1,828, and that is the total of the budget details for the default. Oftentimes, we're asked what would get cut if the default budget were to pass. First of all, it would be 1.5 full-time equivalents for teaching positions for $135,788. That would increase our class sizes. The social emotional learning curriculum of $15,000 would be taken out. The multi-tiered system of support social worker behavior specialist would be removed of $14,992. And the playground safety upgrades of $25,000 would come out. So the total cuts to arrive at the default budget would be $190,780. And that is Article 3.
Okay. So with that, we will move into questions and as the testimony. So I'll open it up for testimony in favor. Okay, testimony in opposition.
Yes, Eric Power again, Westview Road. I had some questions about the proposed budget and the default budget. I was going to start with the default budget. I'm not in favor of the operating budget, by the way, but I have some questions as well. My first question is, I'm looking at this document that was posted on the website, on the SAU website called FY25 BSD Default Budget Detail. On the second page, there's a position called New Positions, a line called that, and it's about $136,000, and it was zero in FY24, and I'm wondering why that's being added into the default budget.
Because it's required by law. It's a special ed position.
Those are special ed positions?
The special ed positions are there because they're required by law for our needs.
Okay. So that would be the same for all of the items under special ed, is they're there because they're required by
For the
law?
most part, yeah.
Okay. Is the, I'm looking on the page where it says salaries BCBA, I think that's a behavioral person, is that in special ed? Okay. I noticed we have a new librarian. We were at $74,500 and now we're at about $61,000. But you can't reduce the default budget even though we know the new salary?
We don't know the new salary. The
don't.
position has to be posted. It's a retirement. So we budget for where we typically budget, which is master's step 7-ish or step 5. But the default budget is the existing salary in FY24.
Okay. Then I have the salaries for the principal. I think there's one for CS Today, one for RMMS. I see two line items. I see that there's some increases on those salaries that are being put into the default budget.
Those are contracted as well.
Is there contracts for the principals?
There are,
Yes.
Okay. I guess I'll ask for those later.
absolutely.
Then I also see a line item that's for the part, it says PT time custodian, I think it probably means part-time custodian. It was 0 in the FY '24 adopted budget, and I see it being added into the default budget at $28,951. So how could a new position, a part-time custodian, be put into the default budget?
Well, that position is really a part-time person, but it fills a position that is in the budget, a couple lines up from there.
We couldn't fill it at the 1.0, so we
Right.
filled it with someone who needed part-time hours.
Yes, but I understand under the default budget, by law, if it was 0 in the previous year, you can't add it in.
But it's not really 0. It represents that position that we do have that we couldn't fill at 1.0. So those lines could be merged together. They're just separated because they're different account lines.
Are you taking that salary out of the previous one?
I have the previous one.
Well, I see salaries maintenance, summer custodian, part-time custodian.
It's in the line, the first salary line. That is where that position lives, but because it's a part-time position, it's in the other line. But it's
I see you
really,
redu-
it's the same position.
I see you reduced that line by about $25,000, and then you added $28,951.
Right. It's the same position.
Okay. And that was my questions on the default budget. On the salaries for substitutes, I see those have gone up from 22,000 and 24,000, up $9,000 and $6,000 in the proposal. Why are we increasing the substitute budget so much? 40%, 25%?
So we're not increasing the pay, it's just based on actuals of what we're seeing and our needs for substitutes. So the per diem stays the same. We
You're
just have
seeing,
more
you're going to
coverage
see a
needs.
40% increase, 41% increase in
Yep, so
substitutes needs at RMMS?
Correct, so those are based on actuals. So we have utilized more substitutes than we had historically.
Seems like a lot.
There have been a lot of illnesses in the past few years.
I'm going to go down a couple lines to the instruction-specific software subscriptions going up. It's almost doubling. It is more than doubling, going up $18,000.
And that's because there are other places that we've taken from to put into that. There's another line in another place that is less because we've moved it to a different location that makes more sense.
We've tried to centralize all of the software subscriptions so there could be better handle on the controlling of them because we annually review the actual usage by both students and teachers to determine if there's an actual need. So in order to do that, we've pulled those into centralized budgeting lines so that the SAU can look at that a little bit more carefully than hiding it sort of in the math line or an English line.
Okay. Yeah, it's just, that one just pulled out as me as
Sure.
doubling. It looks
Yep.
kind of suspicious. I guess this next group here must be special ed. I see $136,000 for the new positions.
Yep.
Okay. I also saw an increase in paras. Looks like minus 9,000 at maybe, I think if you're doing these, is it RMMS first and CSDA second?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
the 01 account number is RMMS, and
Okay.
02 is CSD.
So down 9,100 at RMMS and up 78,000 at CSDA. That's a lot. 67% increase. Is there that much need for paras?
There is that much need, and there's also reallocation of funds, potentially from out of district, in district, and so it requires additional support in district, but the overall decrease in cost and an increase in functionality of the program.
And in addition, some students moving up from RMMS to CSDA,
Okay.
and the para support needed as they move up.
Are we in general seeing a higher number of students with IEPs and 504 plans than over the past few years, or is it staying stable?
The past couple years, it's staying more stable. We really do our best to build programs in district to service our students. So you're seeing some shifts in cost as we're kind of shifting from out of district back in district, as Gina was saying, and the programs being developed are more comprehensive to meet all students' needs.
Okay. I see ESY, looks like there's some needs there. I saw multi-district tuition went up $122,000. Is that in special ed? You said you were bringing things in. It's on the top of the page. It's 101203-560. It says multi-district tuition. It was 12,500 last year, and the proposal this year is 135,000.
I'm trying to find the line where you are.
10.1203.560.
Page 4, if you're on a view.
So that has stayed, that's gone up to 135. Yeah, so that's very specific student needs. I can't speak thoroughly to it in this form.
Is that an out-of-district
Yes.
placement? That the person wasn't, they had a big change?
There's been
in-
changes in the programming.
Okay. ELL, that's English as a English language learners?
English language learners, yes.
Do we have much in that? It's gone up 36%?
It's growing, yes.
I talked about the librarian already. So one thing I had a question on, you said additional computer equipment line and then replacement computer equipment line. It looks like you're down about 23,000, but up about 36,000 on the replacement computer. What's going on with that part of the budget?
So for the special education portion, these are devices that are used for the technology needs for special education. This is separate from what you would see for technology for the whole district.
So these ones are still under special ed?
Correct.
I see a line on the next page, it's legal services. It was $12,000 and now we're going up to 29,000, going up about 1.5 times. Are we being sued or what's happening with the legal budget?
We have a number of people who challenge a variety of decisions that are made. We have a number of times where we consult legal, like with the petition warrant articles that came in. All of those are sent off to legal to make sure they're reviewed for accuracy and then giving us guidance on which ones require public hearings, which ones require regular hearings. So there are just a number of things that are much more prudent on our part to send off to legal to make sure we have the right path to follow.
But I'm just asking why there's such a big increase, because it was at 12,000 now to 29,000.
Yeah, there are definitely some cases where folks have challenged us, either special ed cases or regular ed cases, and we're involved with legal counsel.
So you're predicting what you need for FY25 based on that
Based on actuals.
experience?
Based on actuals, yes.
Okay. I see just a question, I guess, I see the line says FY25 RMMS new items, and then CSDA new items. Are any of those in the default budget, or only the special ed is in the default budget?
No, none of those are in the default budget.
None of those are in the default budget. That's about $200,000 for the two schools?
Correct.
Okay. Talked about the part-time custodian. I see that heating oil is up $11,000 from last year. It's been pretty high. Is that an accurate assessment?
We have aging systems.
And I think on one of the slides, the superintendent had talked about special education transportation going down. I don't know if you could bring up that slide. But I'm looking at the two lines that say special ed transportation vendor. One goes down 60,000, but one goes up about 130,000. So that looks like a net increase of 60,000. Am I missing?
So I'm not sure of all the lines, but we have quite a few individual vendors for special ed transportation as well as STA. So there's special ed within our bus contract, as well as regular ed within our bus contract, and then individual vendors. So overall, there's a net decrease.
That says there, was that a, what does that say? Special ed transportation, is that a plus?
That's a plus 69,876.
About 70,000 up? Okay. But I thought there was one where it went down on this other slide. Maybe I misremembered. And I guess the one I have shows the special ed being a minus 25,000, but you're not going to be doing that, apparently?
There's a slide.
This one is combined with other services.
Is that special ed services and transportation?
Yes.
Oh, okay. That's what I thought, it was the transportation only.
So we'll speak to the special ed trust. I believe that's what you were just asking about. There's a slide at the end.
Okay. It looked like from the highlights, you weren't going to propose adding to it because it was full to the goal. I did have a question about the curriculums that are being added for the math program, $11,250 at each school. What is that math program and what are we doing there?
Great. So we are we're in the middle of year 8 of Envision 2.0. Last year and then this year, we've been engaged in a deep dive into various programs to see if we stick with the same program again for 3, 4, 5 years, or if we move to a different program. So we have our final discussion with one of the vendors tomorrow after school, where the teachers who piloted the new programs can ask specific questions regarding the pilot before they make their last recommendation to the committee. So that would represent both the product and the training cost associated with implementation of a new program.
What was the program called again? Envision?
Envision 2.0 is what we've been using for 8 years.
Okay. So is this to look, this money is to,
Shift over to a different math program.
so you may or may not go with Envision?
Correct. It's
Based
one
on-
of the 3 options. Our other options that we're looking into is illustrative math from Kendall Hunt, and Eureka Math Squared.
What's the last one?
Eureka Math Squared.
Okay. Okay. And I see, the social emotional learning curriculum was originally 11,500 and it got scaled down to 7,500 at each school. Can you explain what that's about?
I'll default to Lauren.
For the, I'm so sorry, I was checking one of the
This is
SEL curriculums.
social emotional learning curriculum. It started out, look like in the first round, it was at 11,500, then it went to 7,500.
Right.
But
so
I
the-
wanted to know what it was about, what you're going to get for that, what's the purpose of it?
Yes, so we're right now investigating various programs and curriculums, and as we decide which one we want to go with moving forward, there will be different components to it. So there will either be materials, there will be training for teachers, there will be some ongoing pieces. So we would decide how that money is utilized once we decide which program we want to move forward with. There's various options for that cost, for different cost structures for the different programs and needs.
So you think there's a perceived need for it, and now you're just targeting a budget to address it at whatever level you can? Is that the idea?
Yeah, so there is a need for it, and so the school has been taking steps to improve, climate culture, social emotional curriculum, expectations for students, and the steps that have been taken this year have been positive and wonderful, and so the school is seeing those trends, and they want to really kind of investigate more robust ways to target this for all students, and then have a tiered approach, as needed for things as they arise.
I would just add that was one of the goals of this sitting board, to move forward with a structured social emotional learning curriculum.
And on the personnel, you mentioned you hired a kindergarten teacher in August after the budget was done, or?
We did, due to a spike in enrollment. We had budgeted for 4 sections of kindergarten, and so we had to add a 5th section in August. So you're right, it wasn't budgeted for, and so we had to pull from all of our other regular ed lines in order to afford the teacher.
Is that in the default budget, or is it not because it wasn't in the budget?
That
last
is
year?
not, and so that's what you see, if we go with the default, you'll see a decrease in 1.5 FTE of teachers, and so that teacher would not be included, so therefore you'd see an increase in class size, because those students, we have them now.
And right now, just to clarify, we have 5 sections and they're all day kindergarten. We're not doing the half days anymore.
Correct.
Okay. On the playground, I noticed there was $25,000, and then there was going to be a $50,000 donation from the PTO. That's very nice, actually. So is that going to be only at CSDA? Is there something there that has to be done, or what's the nature of that upgrade for $75,000?
Yeah, hi,
Hi.
Tricia Relay, I can speak to that. Yes, well, we've been trying to get this proposal passed for the past 3 years. And based on the needs and the size of the school and the requirements to satisfy all the needs of students, we've been working with a vendor that also had built RMMS's playground. And basically, 75,000 is the number that we were projecting. Since that time, when we started it 3 years ago, obviously prices have increased. We also just received a requirement, the state just passed a House Bill 467, which is requiring us to add accessible pathways made with a resilient solid surface so that students of all abilities, even if they're using wheelchairs, walkers, or canes, would be able to access any new equipment. So I've been working with our facilities director, Lance Finnemore, and the contractor in both December, and then we just met again in January. And I did learn that the prices of all the equipment and the installation has increased. So we worked with them stating that, I currently have $50,000, what's the best what we can do while we meet all the requirements for ADA compliance. And at this point, I do have a new quote. We were able to determine that the current playground, as far as the swing sets, the frames, they can still be used. So that will save us some money. So that way we can make sure that we're still meeting our compliance requirements, as well as while still maintaining the cap of $75,000.
So is it going to be expanding the playground, or is it just sort of renovating it?
It's really, the swings, we'll be renovating the swings, but then we will be providing all new equipment otherwise. Different climbing structures and things like that. And several of them will have ADA compliance as well.
So you're going to be doing the resilient material there
Yes.
because of the new state law?
Correct. And the contract has been wonderful because New Hampshire is the only state that currently has this new requirement. And I'll be honest with you, it's pretty much cost prohibitive as far as the requirements initially when they came out. So there's been discussion as far as what is it really meant by having a solid surface. And the contractor's been able to ensure that if the matting that we'll be using, it's similar to the matting that's used if you go to a skating rink, when you have the warming room. It's that type of matting that we'll be able to create walkways to all the equipment.
Yeah, I was familiar with that bill, and there's some good aspects to it, but
Absolutely.
I think there's also some things about cost that are hard to swallow with some of it, so
Exactly.
there's some pluses and minuses there.
Yeah.
I just was curious if it was impacting us, and it sounds like it is to some degree. The last thing that was under REAP was, on the new items, was the 2 interactive flat panels for $9,000 and the Chromebooks, 83 of them, and I guess and then 18 more, so 101 Chromebooks. is that for all new Chromebooks for the school?
Yep, so REAP is not part of the budget. It is the Rural Education Fund, so it's a grant, federal grant that Brookline has received and been eligible for every year. The focus is on technology. You can see an interactive flat panel right over here. So as our smart boards are out of date and no longer updatable, we've been replacing them with the interactive flat panel splash, which avoids also the need to have a projector. So now it's just one board. And then the Chromebook. So we are a one-to-one district, and it was great that we received so much grant funds, so many funds to utilize to purchase the Chromebooks, but they are at end of life. And so we need to create, and we have created, a replacement cycle. We are looking at the length of the Chromebook, the lifetime of the Chromebook, and how it can last a different amount of years in our elementary, longer, which is great. Because the students are staying in their classroom, they're not traveling, they're not carrying their Chromebook to and from home, they're not carrying them to 7 classes a day, which is nice. So the lifespan of the Chromebook in our elementaries is a little bit longer. We've also looked at what does a first, second grade student need compared to a fifth, sixth grade student. And so our newer Chromebooks are being allocated to our older students that have greater needs than our younger students. So we've been pretty intentional about how we purchase our devices.
So is the goal that every student has a Chromebook?
We have been one-to-one since COVID, yes.
Okay. Okay, good. Just from a top level about the budget, we looked at what were happening since from current year to next year, but if you go back the previous year, we had a gigantic tax increase in the tax effort. In FY23, we were at $6.9 million tax effort, and we jumped up to 8.4 million for the current year. We're in FY24, and then we're talking about going to about 8.9 tax effort. And so that really affects taxpayers. And so I think, you're keeping the budget down for this year, but it's still over the 2 years, we've seen a gigantic tax increase, and that's really hurting people in town. I know that's a big topic every time I talk to people. We've seen, the budget go up quite a bit. The total appropriations in these 3 years has gone up about 21%, and the tax effort, and it's partial through the revenue, has gone up 41%, and that's what hits us in the taxes. So there's a lot of tax-paying families that are feeling the crunch, and so, I think you should try to see where you can cut things down. I know you've tried to do the best you can, but I still don't support this budget. I think it's too high, and we'll look forward to talking about it more at the deliberative session to see what other adjustments we might want to make based on things. And appreciate you taking the time to answer all my detailed questions.
Thank you.
Okay, I will call for testimony in favor one more time. Hearing none, any further testimony in opposition? Okay, we will close Article 3 and move on to Article 4, which is our SAU budget.
Shall the voters of the Brookline School District adopt a school administrative unit budget of $2,377,762 for the forthcoming fiscal year, in which $473,655 is assigned to the school budget of this school district. This year's adjusted budget of $2,356,823, with $469,484 assigned to the school budget of this school district, will be adopted if the article does not receive a majority vote of all the school district's voters voting in the school administrative unit. We have a little bit of a comparison, and we see that it's a change of $166,621, which at the SAU is primarily all about salaries and benefits. The salaries increase over the FY24 budget is $81,980. The benefits, which we saw across the SAU, guaranteed maximum increase for health of 18.6, and dental a guaranteed maximum of 4.7, which increased our benefits line by $70,839. That accounts for the change of $166,621. Again, the SAU budget is voted on by all three towns, so it's really the only time somebody can vote twice on the same budget, by coming to the Brookline meeting and coming to, Brookline voting and coming to the co-op meeting. And I'll turn it back over to the chair for,
Okay, so with that, we will open for testimony in favor. All right, testimony in opposition.
Yes, Eric Power, Westview Road. I'm really concerned about this SAU budget. It keeps growing very, very rapidly. As you saw, it's another 7% increase. And I think that we're paying quite a lot. If you look at the Department of Education website, our superintendent is paid number 2 in the state. And I think that's a lot for a small district to be paying. And we're talking about paying him with this budget, $196,174. And I think the top person is in Oyster River, the top superintendent, and he's just over 200,000. So we're getting pretty close to that. And my understanding, he's retiring next year as well. But overall, this SAU has gotten large. I remember the days of having 8 people in the SAU back in 2007. And I did have one question because I saw the presentation for the SAU budget saying there was, I think, 17 people in the SAU, but if you go to the website, I see 21 faces. And I wanted to know what's the true head count in the SAU office?
the true head count is to 17. There are people that are housed there that work for either Hollis, Brookline, or the co-op.
But you show them on the SAU page just because
That's where you can find them.
That's where their office is.
But they're not paid out of the SAU budget?
Correct.
Okay. That wasn't clear.
Okay.
And, you know, my understanding is it looks like we've been giving bonuses or second raises out of the end of the year unfunded balance in the SAU, which has caused our pay raises to go way up. And unfortunately, for some reason, that also seems to be part of the adjusted budget. It's not what the voters voted last year, it's what the voters voted last year, plus some additional pay increases for some of the administrators. And, you know, as a voter, I feel disenfranchised on that because I think, you know, we picked something and we should be able to vote on it. We shouldn't have the adjusted budget have those increases, if my understanding is correct. And the other thing I look at, and this is overall for SAU, it's Brookline as well, I'll talk about Brookline, is I looked at the number of students in our statewide testing that are below proficient, and I'm very concerned about that. You look at grade 3, we have 45% of students not proficient in math, and 61% not proficient in reading, according to the test scores by the Department of Education. Grade 4, 35% not proficient in math, reading 44% not proficient. Grade 5, 55% are not proficient in math, and 26% are not proficient in reading, and 43 aren't proficient in science. And in the grade 6, we have 38% not proficient in math, and 36 not proficient in reading. And, you know, the SAU is supposed to be leading us to having a great school district, but these test scores are kind of, I think numbers of 30, 40, and 50, and 60% of students not being proficient are a big concern. And, you know, I see a little bit of a disconnect with what we're paying the administrative office and the results we're seeing. We have similar kinds of results. They're a little bit better in the co-op. Hollis has better results than Brookline, but they're still not great. And I get concerned about that. I don't know what's being done to try to address it. I know we did have COVID, and I know there's been documented regression during COVID. I don't know if anybody can address my concerns about the statewide testing.
Sure. So thank you for pointing that out. And that's exactly why we have put in our new items, the specific items we've put in, such as increases in reading services. It's directly based on the results that we're seeing. Some of the shared software would be some of our science programming where we can utilize some science tests that are manipulatives online that are similar to the science tests that you see in 5th grade. So we're absolutely taking this data and utilizing it to make informed decisions and recommendations. We'll also point out that the January 2nd, they just released the per pupil expenditure. And so if you look at Brookline, we're at 16,000 per pupil expenditure as compared to the state average of 20,000. Hollis is 20,000. So we are doing our very best at just 80% of what the average state is spending. So 100% we pay a lot in taxes, but we are creating this product on a very lower per pupil cost. I would absolutely welcome more support in our classroom, in our reading and math curriculum.
Yeah, I agree that, especially I think it's most critical in the early grades to make sure kids don't fall behind, especially in reading, secondarily in math, because I think if you can make sure that the kids are reading, that's a really important thing, because it'll just get worse if you let it keep going. And I know that the state legislature is also working on, Republicans and Democrats are working on recognizing that need for taking care of students and making sure that there's evidence-based learning to help Horton Gillingham and other types of programs such as that really help teach the phonics that would help. So I do support that sort of thing, but I am concerned about where we are right now. We spend a lot of money on students, and I appreciate what you say there. I know that they subtract some things out when they do the state does it for comparison. If I take the total appropriations and divide it by the number of students, and this includes the pre-K students, which I think sways things a little bit, but our all-in cost is about just over $21,300 approximately is what we're spending for everything. If you divide the appropriations divided by students, and I think that's a pretty high number if you think about how much money we spend. And I know it's higher in the co-op, and I know that Hollis is even higher than that, but I still think there's going to be areas that we can look to do some things a little bit more efficiently. And I think, I know this budget's been voted on by the SAU governing board, because I used to be on it, and I did vote on it at the time when I was on it, but I think this is a little bit out of control, and I'm gonna be voting no on this, and I encourage the budget committee to not recommend this article because I think the increase is too large for this administrative unit. And thank you for hearing my input on this.
Okay, we'll call for testimony in favor one more time. And any further testimony in opposition? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to Article 5, which is our School Facilities Maintenance Trust.
To see if the school district will vote to raise and appropriate a sum of up to $156,000 to be added to the previously established School Facilities Maintenance Trust Fund from the June 30th unassigned fund balance surplus. Maintenance trusts, first of all, the status. We have an ending balance of FY24 of $30,657. We are requesting $156,000 in this year's warrant. We're proposing use, which I'll go over in a moment, of $106,000, giving us an anticipating ending balance in FY25 of $80,657. The maintenance trust is something that we have used as a mechanism to maintain our buildings and to do a number of the smaller projects that come up on a regular basis, or to take some of our larger projects and chunk them so that we're maintaining the buildings, but at the same time not having that tax spike. So on this year's list, we need a new phone system and intercom system at RMMS. We are in phase 3 of replacing external doors at CSDA that have become just some rot and some different issues that we're dealing with over the many winters. We are proposing the kitchen area roof replacement. It's at its end of life for $25,000. We have a need to upgrade our panic burglar alarm at CSDA for $15,000. We're looking to further enhance our camera capabilities on the exterior of the building at RMS for $7,000. And then we have some change to the main flooring at CSDA in the office for $4,000, for the total of $106,000 that I spoke about on the previous page. And I'll turn it back over to the chair.
All right, thank you. So with that, I will open for testimony in favor. Okay, any testimony in opposition?
Eric Power, Westview Road. I did have a question about, this is going to be funded only if there's an unassigned fund balance, but it's also being raised and appropriated, so there's a line item raising it. Is that my understanding, or is that not correct?
Kelly, can you touch base?
Yeah, that language is, probably needs to be adjusted. So, good point, good catch. It is just supposed to be funded by the unreserved fund balance, so I need to fix that.
And I think that probably is just left over from last year. Eric, if you remember, we
exactly
did,
is.
part of it was raised and appropriated, and part of it was surplus.
That's why I asked the question, because I saw that.
Yeah.
So the intent really is not to raise it, but is
No.
to any funds that are, I think there's the language, any funds that may be left on June 30th or
Yes.
something like that?
Yes,
Up to,
yep,
Correct.
okay, up to 156?
yes, we'll get that fixed, thank you for catching that.
Okay. I'm still concerned about this because everything like this impacts the taxes. I know there's some things obviously that need to be done. You know, I'm on the fence with this one. But if it was raising and appropriating, I would be against it. But I still think, you know, this does, you know, if this money is not, if this article is defeated, then the money would come back to the taxpayers. We also have the ability, what is the, just we're talking about funds, what is the, I know we have, did we change the level for Brookline in terms of the retained fund balance percentage that we're authorizing the school board?
I think it's 2%, if
Is
I
it,
remember right.
is it currently 2%? Okay. So that's another mechanism there, so there's many mechanisms, so, you know, I probably will vote against this, but I just want to ask that. I actually had one quick question back on Article 2 about the Sanbornization. So we Sanbornized as I mentioned, we Sanbornized the contract for 4 years. And here we're proposing to increase it, and you're showing it for 2 years. Are we Sanbornizing the Sanbornized, or are we voting this year on the 93,000 and then next year on,
Sure.
I guess, whatever it is, 7,100 or whatever you think it's going to be?
So the 4 years were Sanbornized. When we reached out and shared a new salary table, the one that you saw, what remained was the percentage that was already bargained for year 4. So the percentage would be off of the new table, which would result in an additional 7,100 for year 4. So it's just the same agreed upon percentage, but on a new table.
My question is, are we going, it looks like we're raising and appropriating 93,000, so we're going to have another article next year for $7,100 or whatever the number would be for the 4th year, because you can't really Sanbornize a Sanbornize contract, or?
So the Sanbornized contract of that, the percentage over from year 3 to year 4 was already agreed upon, but we're being transparent by showing what the approval of this article would do to what has already been agreed upon. I will share with you, as it mentioned, they are huge increases. We don't have folks in those positions, and we are contracting out. So instead of paying $20,000 for a para, we're paying $60,000 to contract a para. And we still have the same legal requirements to have X number of them. So what we're really doing is pulling away from any possible resource we have in the school in order to fund our legal requirements of these individuals. So yes, it is an increase of 93,370. It really allows us to utilize the budget as is budgeted by hiring the employees and not pulling away from all of our other lines.
So if this passes by the voters this year, then we're going to have another article next year for 7,100 or whatever the number would be for the 4th year, because you can't really Sanbornize a Sanbornize contract, or?
So
is the increases for the last year of the 4-year contract set in at higher level?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was my question.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further testimony in favor? Testimony in opposition? All right, we'll close Article 5 and move to Article 6, which, well, do we want to share something else first? Yeah.
We just want you to make the community and the board aware of the Special Education Reserve Trust. Its current status in FY '24 is $250,000. We're not projecting a use right now at this time. That could change. So we anticipate an ending balance of $250,000. Therefore, we're not asking the voters for contribution on this. So this is not an article. It's just an explanation of where the fund is at. What I'd like to do now is run through the petition warrant articles that came in, just so people at home are aware of them. What we're referring to, Article 6, which is a petition warrant article. To prevent taxpayer dollars from funding lobbyists, shall the Brookline School District zero out budget line item dues 10.2310.810.00. This article represents what I would call no means no. So if the taxpayers voted that they were in favor of this article and did not want to fund the dues line would not be funded. That would mean the New Hampshire School Boards Association that the board participates in, as well as the Principals Association that the principals participate in. Article 7, petition warrant article, shall the school district rescind the provisions of RSA 98:20-B, appropriation for unanticipated funds made available during the year, so that the school board is required to hold a public hearing to accept or expend unanticipated money. We did consult with legal on this one, and what we were told is that basically if an item is over $20,000, there is an expectation of a public hearing already, but that is the gist of what this article is talking about. Article 8, petition warrant article, shall the Brookline School District rescind authorization under RSA 198:4-B, Roman numeral 2, so that the Brookline School District no longer retains any unassigned general funds under RSA 198:4-B, Roman numeral 2, and return all unassigned general funds to taxpayers. This is a couple years ago, we actually started the unassigned general fund, and the board votes on that every August. If this article were to pass, those monies would just filter down and go back to the taxpayers unless they were allocated by the school board prior to June 30th. Article 9, petition warrant article, shall the school district direct the Brookline School Board to cease the funding and use of social emotional learning curriculum instruction in all of our schools of the Brookline School District. The curriculum is under the sole authority under the elected board, which is the school board. So this would be, according to legal, an advisory article, so that if the voters did pass it, it doesn't mean it doesn't have to happen, and it would be very difficult because you could provide an argument that we're saying we are responsible for providing this curriculum to students. So that is what this article is promoting. And Article 10, petition warrant article, shall the Brookline School District pursuant to RSA 194C, Roman numeral 1, create a planning committee to study the advisability of the withdrawal of the Brookline School District from SAU 41 in accordance with RSA 194-C:2, Roman numeral 4A, for its organization, operation, and control, and for the advisability of constructing, maintaining, and operating a school administrative unit to serve the needs of the Brookline School Board. This article actually requires its own public hearing, so we're scheduling that on Monday, the 22nd at 6:30 right here. This, again, the voters would need to decide if they want to develop a study committee, which is really the first stage in potentially pulling apart from the SAU and potentially ending the co-op piece of our SAU. This is an article that has come before the voters in both the co-op and Brookline numerous times. And we'll have, again, that public hearing on the 22nd to meet those requirements. And these Articles 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 will appear on the warrant as they are petition warrant articles, and they can and will be discussed at deliberative session.
Are we able to move that public hearing to the 24th since we have the school board meeting that night?
We are not, because it wouldn't meet the legal requirements of between 15 and 30 days of our February 7th deliberative session.
But you are not required to attend.
That was my next question,
Okay.
was do you need a quorum?
You need,
No.
you need me.
We need you.
Okay.
Got it. Cool.
Sure as the sun comes up, this has been on here. I'm sick to death of seeing this one.
Would both of the boards vote on this if there's a full public hearing for their suggestions?
I am sorry?
Nor, as it's laid out now, that we vote on them. If the Article 10 requires a full public hearing, will the Finance Committee and the school board still do their yes or no vote?
You can absolutely do your yes or no vote, and then the night deliberative session, you could change it if that's what the Finance Committee or the board wanted to do.
Okay. Curious if we need to be there.
And that is it for the public hearing.
Thank you. So appreciate the feedback and everyone's interest in the answers tonight. I'm going to close the public hearing at 7:47. And with that, we will reconvene our school board meeting at 7:47. So the only order of business tonight is to deliberate on what we just went through. Would you like to vote? You want to do, to the Finance Committee, do you want to vote on each one with us? We'll do one and then turn it over to you. Does that sound like a plan? Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so I will start. So we're going to start at Article 1, Election of Officers, and I will make a motion to recommend Article 1 as presented.
I'll second that.
Seconded. Is there any further discussion on this one? Probably not. Okay, we'll put it to a vote then. All those in favor? 4-0. Very good. I don't think you need a vote on this one, right? Okay, great. Okay, so now we're to the meat now, Article 2, and that's the support staff contract. I will make a motion to recommend Article 2 as presented.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, so that's on the floor. Would you like to put anything on the floor too, so we can all just talk, or?
Make a motion then, so we can have
So
discussion.
with discussion.
Okay, great. So we can just have a joint discussion here then.
Yeah, usually we just have a joint.
Right. Okay, so that's on the floor. If there's any feedback from anyone, please, by all means, I'm just pulling up the PowerPoint on my side too.
I will say, knowing the cost of knowing the amount of what it costs to contract out these positions, I would highly recommend this to ensure that our pay scale is more in line to try to actually fill our positions. Because in the long run, while this number looks daunting, in the long run, it's going to save us money. Given that, what Jeannie said was, 60,000 per contracted?
Roughly, yep.
Roughly, I mean, that's more than double than what the,
Close to triple.
close to triple to what the positions would actually be if we were able to fill them, if we were more competitively paying our support staff. So I just want to reinforce that comment, that it's hard to see a number like that, and I understand that, but I think if we step back and we look at the cost that it takes to contract out, we're spending far more money than what we're looking at with this increase.
What kind of ballpark?
It's 60 grand just for a contracted position.
All in.
We currently have 6 contracted paras,
Yeah,
so we could have 18 paras that were not contracted for the same cost.
how many total positions do we have in the district? Do we know?
It recently changed due to program needs. I believe we have 20 total in both buildings right now.
And we have 6
give or
that
take
are
one.
not currently filled.
No, we have 6 that are filled
We have 6 that are
by
filled by
contracted
contractors,
providers.
right.
Correct.
Right,
That are 3 times the cost of what.
Correct, at 3 times the cost of what.
right, yep.
So yeah,
just
think-
wanna-
Oh, go ahead.
I just want to second what Allison is saying and just point out that, I mean, we can talk about percentages, but when you look at the actual wages that we're paying paras, it's still quite frankly a little embarrassing. they could go work at McDonald's and make more money, and these are the people that we're hiring to ensure the safety of our children, to help us with instruction, to ensure there's just social emotional wellness in the classroom. They're the backbone of the school along with other staff. So if we can hide that by talking about percentages, or we can look at the fact that we're basically still only asking for an increase to $16.40 an hour, which is not a really a livable wage. And also, you could make more working in retail or at McDonald's.
Yeah, so when we talked about this throughout the cycle, this was I would call this a conscious business decision to pay a little more to make a lot more back. We've talked about the wages here, but in addition to that, the turnover versus having the same faces for the students every day, and making sure that those kids have the same staff in place, and those staff members feel part of the community. There's a cost to that too. That you can't put on a spreadsheet, but we certainly know that the cost of training is certainly more than retaining employees. So this one, to me, I think taken out of, and just looking on the screen without the backstory, I could appreciate that. But knowing what we've talked about and just hashing out here too, I think this is a must do, quite frankly, and keep us competitive, keep the same faces, and certainly pay less overall for the bottom line.
Bless you.
I just want to reiterate what everyone else has said, and also too, when you lose someone and then you have to bring someone on, it usually costs about 3 times that amount. So again, it seems like the rule of 3 here, but yeah.
Okay. Anything else on the are you comfortable putting a vote first, and then the finance will start? Okay. So all those in favor on the school board? Okay, 4-0 over to the finance committee. Any further discussion? Certainly too.
I think from a numbers perspective, and from the finance committee perspective, I understand you guys are yes, taking this hat off. I have different thoughts, but from a budget perspective, also that is, we can spend that much. We may not necessarily spend that much, correct? If we don't get those positions filled. But on a numbers basis, while I would like to not spend more money, I think we're probably paying out the nose, as we've said, for the contracted positions, and having in-house would probably be better. And I assume cost less in the long run if the longevity of the employees don't have a turnover for the children, that they have to stabilize their emotional support and stuff like that. So from a numbers perspective, I like this one too.
We're ready for a vote?
Yep.
So the finance committee votes yes.
Okay. Great. We are at Article 3. Whoops. Bear with me for just a moment. We are at Article 3 now, which is our operating budget, and I will make a motion to recommend Article 3 as presented.
Second that.
Okay. So that's on the floor. Is there any? If you need to, I don't want to presume you want to put a motion on every time or not, or?
No,
Okay.
we usually just.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
follow your motion.
I thought so. Okay. So that's on the floor for discussion. If anyone has any immediate feedback.
I can start. So first I want to thank the superintendent and the principals, because every board meeting that we have sat through the last couple of months, we've said to you, you need to bring it down. You need to bring it down. And you have done that, and you have met that every single time. And I do not feel that where we've landed, I don't think it is an extraordinary increase. And I just want to thank you for your diligence and your work in bringing from round 1 to where we've landed. I do want to say thank you for that, and I appreciate all of your work and hard work that went into really being mindful about where we're spending money this year, where the required increases are, where our wants are, while also being mindful of the overall increase. So I just wanted to start by saying thank you for your work on that.
Yeah, I agree. I know we've tried to shave off as much as possible, and I fear that at this point anything further would be detrimental to our students' population, both special ed but the general population too, even as far as the the teaching position that we have on here that would be cut if we went to the default. Class size was overwhelmingly something that our town is in favor of. When there was a thought that that could be under revision in the last few years, I remember receiving upwards to maybe 70 emails against that. And this would be a direct impact and in violation of that suggestion. So, when we look at that, that's the lion's share of the delta. The other piece is the playground safety, which Principal Belay went through, and I really want to nod and say thank you to the PTO that raised money, and I think we have to do our part to contribute to that now too, to keep the momentum going there. And when you really look at it, that's the delta. So I'm certainly in favor of this, and I echo Allison's comment on the budget cycle, well thought out, and appreciate the effort from the entire staff.
I do want to thank everyone too as well. I know it's been a tough year. I don't think we did talk about looking back at the math program, adding back in money. I don't think we needed to, right? If this is the budget that we are putting forward, then, I will support it. But I also just want to say that as a parent and as a taxpayer, I want to make sure we're doing what's right. I want to make sure we're doing what's right for our children now and in the future. And I want to make sure that this is the right budget that we feel we're putting forward. And I just want to make sure that we feel comfortable and confident with the academics and everything else that we have in this budget. So if the four of us feel comfortable and confident in that, then.
Yep.
I wish we didn't have to go through those rounds and take out what we did, but given the state of taxes and all of that, I think the changes that were made by administration were needed. Do I wish it were a little bit different? Yes, but I completely understand that some taxpayers are suffering and that we do have to balance the needs of that with the needs of our students. And I think actually everybody's done a great job of that. Even if, the things that were cut, kids can still do well without them. Is it ideal? No.
Are you referencing the SEL? Because I think at the last meeting we had said you wanted to see a kind of a revised budget to see if we could increase that at all.
Yeah,
right? Is that what you're referencing?
Yeah, we
Okay.
did want to look, over the summer, we wanted to look at SEL. I think we did talk in our last meeting that the math program, even though it was cut, that it wouldn't affect academics.
Can I clarify? The math program wasn't cut.
Sorry,
So it was an estimate?
The number came
The
down.
number came down
Right.
based on actual quotes on
Yes.
the final three. And so the final dollar amount that's in the new items represents allowing us to have the ability to choose whichever of the three that the teachers feel comfortable with. So
Yes.
the math program is saved, if you will.
Yes.
Negotiated
yes,
savings,
yes,
right?
Yes.
Negotiated savings,
Yes.
yeah.
Can I ask, with that math program, so I'm assuming that budget line item then is of the three, it's gonna be for the most expensive of the three, right?
Correct.
So, if the recommendation from the staff is one that isn't, then we'll have a slight, is it a big cost savings between the three? Or are they all pretty much in line?
They're
Like, what does that
they're
look
very
like?
close. There's one that's less expensive, but it requires a whole lot of professional development. So
That costs kinda, yeah.
it sort of evens out in the end.
Okay.
However, at the end of the day, when the bill actually comes in, it's typically a little bit different from what we project in July a year prior. And so there's always a little bit of flexibility in terms of making decisions. If an SEL curriculum comes in and the committee wants it and it's 18,000 and not 15,000, there's usually the ability to move money if the math program comes in lower and fund what's necessary.
And then your concerns with, we had cut SEL at one point, or not cut, I'm sorry, decreased the amount in it. Not cut it,
Words
decreased
matter,
it,
words
do
matter.
But you guys are confident that what's in the budget for SEL will meet the needs of the school, the staff, the students?
Yes.
Okay. That's good enough for me. I don't know where that lands on you, but for me, that is, I defer to the experts there.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. I guess I would just one more plea to please, the budget here is, we're talking $200,000 difference between the operating versus default, and that razor thin margin is needed. I would implore everyone to vote for the operating budget, and let's not be foolhardy to save $200,000 to really, that would impact an entire cohort of students if we did that.
And I just want to ask one clarifying question. So we had met, obviously, as a joint meeting in December, and there was a lot of conversation about funding, different items, different sources, the tree removal, the playground was one of them, SEL, et cetera. As far as I can tell, this is essentially the same budget we reviewed. There really was no changes since the December meeting.
That's pretty much correct.
Yeah, we talked about negotiated savings on the math, the SEL that you mentioned, and then the maintenance trust is where the tree stuff was, and I think we pulled that out if I
Pulled that
remember
out.
right. Yeah.
Yep. So we delayed some things from the maintenance trust to future years.
Okay.
And none of those delays are going to have any kind of detrimental
No, I
issues
mean-
to our buildings, obviously.
Obviously, if we, received a report 6 months from now that one of the trees needs to come down, it's coming down.
Right.
So, that's commonplace to have to accelerate things because of conditions.
Okay.
There's a line in here, I think it's this one. Could you go forward a couple pages? For a +1 full-time teacher. What was this one? Yeah, right there for 246. That's more than a teacher. What else is in there?
Well, it represents all classroom teachers, and there's one of
Oh,
the
okay,
new
I got
teacher
you.
is
I
in
got
that
you.
number.
Okay. We'll put to a vote for the school board. All those in favor? 4-0. Board of Finance Committee.
All those in favor?
Okay. Okay, so we are at Article 5, our School Facilities Maintenance Trust, and I will make a motion. Whoops, did I miss one?
Yep.
Thank you. Let's hold up. Thank you. Keep me honest. All right, so we're at Article 4, SAU budget, and I will make a motion to recommend Article 4 as presented.
I'll second that.
Very good. We have talked about this one at our SAU. I don't have much more to offer other than I will say in our conversation, I want to note, I agree with the sentiment around having a budget pool, and that has been enacted for the future as opposed to pulling it out of the unreserved fund balance moving forward. So that was something that stood out in the last cycle as well to me, and I know our team took that feedback and went with it. Anything else that anyone wants to offer? Okay, why don't we put it to a vote on the school board? All those in favor? 4-0.
Finance committee, all those in favor? All those opposed? Sorry. Got the second part. Thank you.
Okay, we are at Article 5 now. This is our School Facilities Maintenance Trust, and I will make a motion to recommend Article 5 as presented.
I'll second that.
All right,
Are you going to amend it?
As amended.
As amended.
we need to amend it. Is this the one that okay, this is the surplus, so amend and remove the raise and appropriate, it will be a surplus. Surplus for the $156,000. So I'll make a motion to amend as I just noted.
A second.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, any further discussion on this? We had quite a detailed discussion last meeting. I don't have anything else to offer. No? Okay, all those in favor? 4-0.
Finance committee, all those in favor? Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion for Article 6, to recommend Article 6 as presented. And that's the business business which may legally come before said meeting, which we have on the screen here for that what Superintendent Corey went through for Article 6 through 10 today. So as presented.
So what's the motion?
Are we gonna vote can we vote on each one tonight?
Yep.
We can?
Yep.
We can. Okay, so then I'm gonna go line by line then, thanks.
I was gonna say, there is a note that says Article 6 is to conduct all business. right?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
So the numbering is gonna,
Yeah, so
Change.
we're gonna change the
That
numbering
becomes
now.
11, yep.
Yeah, so Article 6, we'll recommend Article 6, the petition warrant article, to prevent taxpayer dollars from funding lobbyists, shall the Brookline School District zero out budget line item dues 10.2310.810.00 as presented.
Can we make a motion to,
You
what's
can-
the motion on that? Beck?
You make the motions in the affirmative,
Yeah.
Oh,
okay? And then if you're not in support of it, you vote in the negative.
okay.
So we just need someone to allow us to discuss it.
I'll second it.
Thank you, okay.
I'm trying to follow this.
On the floor now to discuss. This came up last year for reference. It was voted down last year as well. I would vote it down for the same reasons because of our school board association and the principals association. I think that's something that we rely on and use, and I think it would be, I guess I don't understand the intent of removing that and taking away tools from our tool belt.
I also think the language of a lot of warrant articles, especially this one, is it could be called deceptive because it's not funding the lobbyists.
No.
The school board association helps us to understand our role. There's trainings we can go to, and they're neutral. They discuss the laws so that we're not inadvertently breaking laws. It's been very helpful to watch some of their trainings. And I'm sure for the principals too, I can't think of the name of the association, it's probably School Principals Association. It's just about helping principals do their jobs. So it's a little deceptive, and I'm completely opposed again this year to this same warrant article that seems to come up.
Yeah, and even to
All the
that
time.
point, we had, the school board association came in the summer this year because we have a newer board and spent several hours going over laws and details for further trainings and things like that. So if people are wondering if we are using that, we are. They have monthly trainings as well, but, you know, that was a great way to get the board coalescing and working together.
Yeah, I've participated in webinars with the New Hampshire School Board Association, and as a volunteer, like, I don't do this for the glitz and the glamour. You know, you may think it's fun, but that is this. You know, having access to the New Hampshire School Board Association is something that I find really, really helpful and beneficial. So, like Ken said, this came up last year. And I think it's just, I'm totally against it.
What's the dollar amount?
Yeah, that's my question. I don't have the line right in front of me. What's the actual dollar amount on that, the total?
I think it's
10,230,000,000. What is it?
It's how much?
4,000.
I think it's
$4,000.
It's $4,000.
Yes.
Okay.
And to save people from making a mistake that could cost us legal fees, that would be 10 hours of legal fees. I mean, really, it's ridiculous. Sorry.
All those in favor? No.
No.
That's, well, you can be. You can be.
Well, no, I
I
can't
mean,
be.
we can
I am
do
absolutely not
it.
in favor.
That's
Nobody's
okay.
pressuring
Yeah,
me.
okay.
Okay,
All
sorry.
those opposed? All right.
Finance Committee, all those in favor? All those opposed?
Abstain.
Okay, and one abstention.
2 abstentions.
2 abstentions.
Yeah, this
Okay.
seems, it feels out of scope for the finance committee.
Good.
Okay.
Very good. Okay, so I will make a motion to recommend Article 7 as presented, which is the warrant article, shall the school district rescind the provisions of RSA 19820B appropriation for unanticipated funds made available during year, so that the school board is required to hold a public hearing to accept or expend unanticipated money.
I'll say.
Allison, thank you. Okay, any feedback here?
I have a question about this one. So, Andy, you said that with this one, there's any amount over 20,000, it was strongly recommended that we hold a public hearing or required that we hold a public hearing?
I think it's strongly recommended, but that's been our practice. Like when we finally get approval of the security grants, we'll come back and the board will approve accepting that money for those purposes.
Okay. Okay.
So this is really the unanticipated funds balance, is that what we're referring to, or is this if we zero out a line and then because of that, we use it elsewhere? Is that what this is requiring? That's what I was trying to reconcile.
This is the money we vote on each August to keep as the,
Yep.
yep,
So it's only the unanticipated funds balance that this would
Correct.
revolve around? Okay.
It wouldn't prevent you from, in May, as a board encumbering money to do a project in the summer that was a surplus. It doesn't do that. It
Are you
just,
talking about 8 or 7?
7.
Yes. So this would be, right, the unanticipated grant funds that might become available?
yes, that's this one. I'm sorry, I was reading
Okay,
8.
so this is grant funds, but I guess my question still, so it's not, we say the MTSS, whatever that acronym is, we haven't been able to fill those every year. So there's X amount of dollars on that line item. That money
That's
can.
No, that would be referencing Article 8. Article 7 would be, so this year they changed the, what was it? The amount that the state provides per pupil. And we thought there might be a
Yep.
significant amount of money coming to Brooklyn. It ended up being, what, 29,000? But if we chose to utilize those funds, we would have had to hold a public hearing
Yep.
anyway. We chose to not include them, and they'll fall to the bottom and go back to taxpayers. But Article 7 would say we would not have the ability to do so. Right now, years back, the voters approved us having the ability to utilize those funds, but we still hold a public hearing anyway, so it's transparent out in the open.
So like the 50,000 donation,
So this is
say
more,
that's unanticipated funds, like we were
That-
like, oh,
that's a
someone wants to give
donation.
us.
that's a donation. So
Yeah.
this would be more like grant funds from the
Okay,
state or
so
federal
just-
government.
Okay.
This is grant
understood.
funds, and we would just explain, this would require us to go through, a hearing just showing what we're using it for.
Which,
Okay.
Right,
which
right.
we do anyways?
Right
Is-
now-
So,
You have the authorization to accept and expend the unanticipated funds, but must hold a hearing for funds in excess of 20,000. That's what you have right now. If this article passes, the money could not be accepted and expended with or without a public hearing, as it would require action of the legislative body at the annual meeting.
Oh, okay.
oh,
So it could be $1,000 and we have to meet and then vote.
Correct.
That's ridiculous. I'm opposed to that.
Okay, I mean, I was hopeful, so I think this is more of a best practice to maintain transparency. I think we talked something similar in the past, but I don't wanna handcuff the board in the future from being able to accept money, and that concerns me, and there is something to being fluid. Okay, thank you. Is there any further discussion?
Question,
Yep.
is the board meeting now any time to accept money? Can it be accepted without the board meeting and voting on it?
Can we
Less
take
than
No.
fund,
No, unanticipated funds
Yeah.
have to go through the board to be accepted and expended.
All
But-
unanticipated funds?
It's $20,000 is a public hearing.
Okay.
so it can come in, but if we were to change this language, we would have to have the entire town discuss it every time is the difference here, as opposed to the board, like, so we meet next February, in February, and we had it unanticipated, we could authorize it then versus pulling the town together.
but our best practice has been if it's 20 grand or more, we pull the town together.
Yep.
No, we hold a public hearing.
That's
Public hearing.
that's right,
Because
yeah,
we,
that's-
so it says rescind the provisions of RSA 19820, so I don't remember what year it was, but, we used to see a number of articles that were, do you accept, like, it used to be catastrophic aid, and then it was special ed aid. Now, we don't need to request
Right.
permission every single year because we, approved this, and then, we discuss all those funds throughout all of our meetings. So it's, this is sort of undoing what the voters have already approved.
Okay.
We are still transparent, we hold public hearings.
I think it's just important, well, we'll see where a vote goes, but I would offer if we do vote negatively here, which I will be, to just explain the reasoning and the logic behind it. Transparency is important, it's just the handcuffing nature of this.
Yep.
Okay, are we ready to vote as a board? Okay, so school board, all those in favor? Okay, is that a no? You're withdrawing that?
I'm withdrawing
Okay.
that.
All those opposed? Okay, 4 opposed, very good. Over to the finance committee if you wanna abstain from that, okay. Very good, okay, so, make a motion to recommend Article 8
I'll second that.
as one second.
Sorry.
As presented, which reads, shall the Brookline School District rescind authorization under RSA 198-4B2 so that the Brookline School District no longer retains any assigned general funds under RSA 198:4B2 and return all assigned general funds to taxpayers?
I'll second that now.
Thank you. Okay, I'll just offer this was voted on and opposed last year as well. Last year was the first time after it was the year before we removed contingency and went to an unassigned fund balance, which the legislative body approved. This came up last year, the legislative body opposed. I am personally still opposed to it and would advocate we oppose it again. Any further, we're good? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Okay, 4 opposed.
All those in favor?
Oh, sorry, yeah, no, sorry, backwards.
Sorry, start over again.
It was so exciting to hear you say that.
All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay.
Thanks. Okay, so over to Article 9. I will make a motion to recommend Article 9 as presented, which reads, shall the school district direct the Brookline School Board to cease the funding and use of social emotional learning, SEL, curriculum and instruction in all of schools of the Brookline School District? So need a second, please?
I'll second that.
Second, thank you. Any discussion here?
I just want to, I think a lot of people are potentially not aware of how impactful SEL curriculum can be on academic scores. So I'm wondering whether, there's a lot of pressure on this district about scores and improving those scores, but then we don't want to spend the money that would help us improve those scores. And this is just a secondary example of that, because tons of studies show that, and it's not an exact amount, but a study that I just looked at recently, that academic achievement improves by 11 percentile points when you're implementing social emotional learning curriculum. It's not some big voodoo thing. It's teaching kids basic skills about self-management, how to recognize their emotions, how to treat other people, how to be a good citizen. And those are all just necessary skills. So I just find it a little interesting why. I don't understand why people are so opposed to this, but I'm definitely opposed to this article. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I 100% agree, Colleen. The other part is when you're going out into the workforce and you're trying to get a job, social emotional learning directly correlates into emotional intelligence, and that is something that I think employers look for, in my view and in other studies. So, it's not some weird, strange curriculum. It's mostly what teachers help kids with. If there's a fight between two kids, right? Or if my child is crying in the corner, it's a lot of helping kids be self-aware, to self-manage, to work out friendships and relationships. And so if we're calling it social emotional learning curriculum, it's because we want to put some frameworks around it. And so, I am not going to be rescinding this.
Yeah, to echo what Tracy and Colleen have said, if a child is struggling emotionally for whatever reason and they have a standardized test that day, they don't know how to grapple those emotions. Some adults can't even wrap their heads around it, and sometimes we ask our kids to just pack it all away and focus just on this, and they can't perform at their best selves if they don't know how to manage emotions, and it does impact learning. And so the tools that we're able to give our staff with SEL curriculum is incredibly important to really help guide our kids and support our students. So this is not one that I would be supporting.
I would just offer too, our Portrait of a Cavalier has, which is an SAU-wide vision, talks about having good students, just good people in addition to academics. And really that's, SEL is about just being nice to people. That's degraded since the pandemic, and we saw an uptick in disruptive behavior. The board felt strongly of enacting some pretty cheap money to help support that, and just trying to be a nice person. I hope that this is not a politically driven type thing. I hope we can just recognize it's just do the right thing and be nice to people. And for, I think it was $15,000, this feels more of a symbolic, well, it is symbolic anyway, because the boards that are voted in do get to choose the curriculum. Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? 4-0, or 0-4 rather. Not taking one, I figured, yeah. Okay, this is our last one, Article 10. I'll make a motion to recommend Article 10 as presented, which reads, shall the Brookline School District pursuant to RSA 194C1 create a planning committee to study the advisability of the withdrawal of the Brookline School District from the SAU 41 in accordance with RSA 194C2, Roman numeral 4A, for its organization, operation, and control, and the advisability of constructing, maintaining, and operating a school administrative unit to serve the needs of the Brookline School District.
I'll second that.
Okay, for history here, just because I've been on the board for a bit, we've had this one come many times forward. This has overwhelmingly been voted down year over year. I'm kind of out of oxygen on my opinion on not doing this anymore. I think it's a waste of time at this point, and I think people move here for the SAU, and I anticipate this being a 4-1 again, opposed in the end. Over.
So this one is interesting, somebody who hasn't been here historically. If this were the opposite and we were doing a feasibility study to look at what it would make to have us a co-op from K to 12, I'd be fully supportive of it, because when you start looking at things in bulk,
Yes.
and you start looking at healthcare benefits in bulk, you save money. And so I would, if this were the opposite of what is read here, I would fully support that, and I'd be very interested to learn where our cost savings could be if we were a co-op K to 12. But knowing the finances of what it takes to dissolve a co-op, I would not support this.
We had a study, just for background too, from during appropriations at least 6 or 7 years ago, where we did a study. It was overwhelmingly cost prohibitive to break this up. Students lost a lot of offerings. The cost per pupil went up. Nobody won. It was a lose-lose scenario. I can't imagine that would change at all. Again, this is detrimental to students. This is detrimental to our communities. And like I said, we this has just, there's a time to concede. There's a time to concede on this. It's been a decade of no, and I'm just so frustrated to see this again. And the fact that it requires its own special hearing is ridiculous too. It's just a slap in the face to everybody that's voted for a decade.
And can I just have a quick question? We're going to abstain, but
Yeah.
I just had a quick clarifying question. This is only in regards to pre-K to 6. So once students go into 7th grade, they would move to the co-op, correct?
It starts the process to look at disbanding.
The SAU.
It does, because you're.
No, the SAU, like 7th, if this were to happen, the Brookline School District would become its own SAU, or just the school district. In 7th grade, those students would still go to the co-op.
Not
That's
necessarily.
not a guarantee.
No,
It's a
if
planning-
all that happened was this, that the Brookline School District, or is this exploring also expanding the school district to 12th grade? Because right now, the school district only goes to 6th, right?
Correct. Yeah. I think
Trying to,
this has always been viewed as the first step in looking at the separation.
The separation of,
From Hollis and the
from Hollis
SAU.
and.
That's
all
what
the
I
way through
understand.
12th grade.
All the way
Yeah.
through, yes.
Yep.
That's how it reads.
That
And
is
that's
how
From
it
the
reads.
SAU 41, yeah, that's how, so it would be its own separate.
no, but it just
school.
says withdrawal of the Brookline School District from the Brookline School District only goes to 6th grade.
That is
That's true.
accurate statement.
Yeah, right. That's a good point.
The construct of this is,
I'm just,
Yeah.
I understand it's
No,
not a
but you're
board
right
written
on what
petition.
you're saying.
I was just,
Well, and it's a advisability, like a study committee, which we've done.
and the report's available. I think we can even, at a board meeting, resurrect it and share that again happily, honestly, and discuss it.
Does it cost money to do these studies?
Yes.
How much does it cost to do these studies? Do we know?
I don't recall off the top of my head.
And then
The last-
who pays for that? Like, would that be then into our budget?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That comes out of, I know, but we had to have outside consultants do this last time. And it certainly, it cost all 3 districts
I'd be-
that chipped in.
I'd be interested to know how much that actually costs.
I will see if I can locate that information.
And I think that that's good information to have when we discuss this later.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, we're looking at a budget that's already thin, and we want to add to it, so,
I just also say, look back every year.
well, yes.
I'm sorry, I'm being
No,
cynical.
you're fine.
I'm not obviously, but I'm opposed to this article, but I will say that as a taxpayer, I've never quite been fully convinced of the apportionment formula.
Yeah.
That it's fair to Brookline voters, and I think that's where this all stemmed from. I don't think it's a good solution, but I do, having gone to it's only every 5 years, and really tried to understand the apportionment formula, I'm still not convinced it's fair to Brookline voters. I'm not convinced it's unfair
I agree with you
yet.
wholeheartedly. I agree
So,
with you. It is unfair.
I
But
think we
don't have the
pay a lot
votes.
more
Yep.
for the schools than Hollis does, and the formula is biased in some ways, so I think that's where it comes from, it's that frustration. So I would hope that when that comes up, I think we're actually we're in year 5 soon, if not this year, that maybe we consider that, because I imagine this is where that's coming from, and I'm a person very supportive of the SAU and the budgets and all that, but, I don't know, nobody's convinced me that that's a fair formula yet. And our town is not usually represented very well as far as that, so, but I am opposed to this because this is it's just not a feasible solution. I understand the frustration, but this is not the solution.
Can you suggest a potential solution that you would like?
A better apportionment formula, or at least a better explanation, but that's not honestly, there are a lot of voters on, who, and maybe more participation from Brookline voters on that issue to better understand it. The SAU board does usually unanimously, I think, recommend it, but no matter which way I look at it, I feel like as a Brookline voter, we pay a lot more in taxes for the same school system, so.
Colleen, can
And
I
I
just
could be,
understand-
I'm open to an explanation
Can
to
I
that.
clarify
Yes.
your statement? Is it regarding the apportionment formula for the co-op 7 through 12 districts, or is it the apportionment of the SAU budget as allocated across?
No, it's the apportionment for the 7 to 12 budget.
So that's a
Yeah.
co-op matter?
Yeah, it's a co-op matter.
Okay.
But that's where I imagine the frustration comes from. So I just want to say that I share the frustration, but that this is not a viable solution. It's been looked at. It's not going to help us spend less money by any means.
Right, and honestly, if this is like just separated from SAU, if this is just really K to 6, and we have to find our own superintendent, we have our own administrative unit just for Brookline, what does that do to the continuity for our students going up, from being then in Brookline and then moving to the co-op versus having that consistency. And so I can respect that as well, but when I step back and I look at, the consistency of the services, of the staff, of how things are handled all the way through, it makes it a smoother and a more seamless experience for our students and families.
Well, then just thinking about what you said, Allison, is there a way for us as a school board, or, I'm not sure, to think about this in reverse, or is that something that would be a petition warrant?
It would be a petition warrant. We definitely, we cannot modify this ourselves.
No,
Nor should we.
not us, or,
yeah, but I absolutely
but
agree.
the opposite,
Yeah.
would that be, so that would be a petition warrant from from the legislative body, not a school board?
Correct.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, 0-4. Do you want to vote? No? Okay. All right. That's everything on here. I don't think we need a non-public this evening, right?
Nope.
Okay. So do you want to adjourn your meeting?
Second.
All right.
Aye.
Very good. And I'll make a motion to adjourn as well.
Second.
Very good. All those in favor? I see that. 4-0, 8:32, we're adjourned. Thanks.
Thank you.
School board members, I need your signature, please, don't leave.